Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we want to ask this fundamental question: why is Firefox dying? And this is a really good question because what we're starting to see now, just in this month's browser statistics, Microsoft Edge is now outpacing Firefox. Remember when Internet Explorer, the old incarnation of Edge, Internet Explorer used to be called, there was a big joke, the big meme before memes were really a thing, the best browser to download another browser. And for a while, most people were downloading Mozilla or Mozilla type products, Firefox, Mozilla, Netscape, those types of things, until Google Chrome showed up. And Google Chrome still didn't even have a dominant market share for a few years after it came out. I forget the exact statistics, but it wasn't right away. It took them a while to grow in. And Firefox at that point in time had a dominance in the web browser field around 45-50%. And a lot of people saw that. And now if you look at the browser statistics, Firefox is very low. So in this article here from the Tech Spot, Chrome is at 67%, Safari 10, Edge is now inched up to 8, and Firefox is now dropped to 797. Opera is down at 2, and IE, the old better browser to download another browser, is at 1.7. Mostly that's from government and company contracts that still require the ActiveX stuff in there. That's the only browser it has. And so that's kind of what we are seeing. And what we wanted to ask is, why is Edge now finally overtaking Firefox? We're going to see Firefox continue to drop. In fact, I would wager that the majority of Firefox users are people that it's just the default browser on most Linux distributions. Of course, just out this week, Microsoft Edge now supports all syncing features on Linux as well. Now, a lot of people, I won't be switching to Microsoft Edge, although I may have to install it on a development computer just for the purposes of testing, web developer type stuff. But it's certainly not something I'm going to be using on a regular basis. There is the big debate between, should we use closed source software? Should we use Microsoft products and things like that? Some people say yes, some people say no. I'm in the no camp, but I'm not mad at anybody for what software they want to use. I've had enough of Microsoft personally. Not to say there's not good and valid reasons to use them. And if you are looking for a good syncing featured browser on Linux, since Google pulled out its APIs, Edge might be one of the options you go with. Of course, Firefox also has some of those options. But it begs this question: why is Firefox dying? Well, the problem is that Firefox thinks that it's their part of their business to make the world a better place as defined by them. We have indeed saw and commented on this article. You can see the whole video on it earlier where I really read through and commented on this. This is from the Mozilla blog. We need more than deplatforming. And what I found most disturbing about this is it's a very political and one-sided view that does not actually align with objective reality as we actually know what it looks like. All this from in fact, the only browser company, but one of the companies that signed on to the EU's Code of Practice on Disinformation. So here's really the problem that Firefox is encountering, is that they are getting involved in the political debate. They're getting involved in the political war. You start talking politics, you're going to alienate a lot of people. I mean, I probably have done my fair share of that as well on this channel, because unfortunately politics is a part of the world. Some people tend to lean more left, some people tend to lean more right, some people are far right, some people are far left. And we can't look to the opposite sides, what we're not, and say, you're just absolute pure evil. And unfortunately, that seems to be what has happened. But it appears as though Mozilla has taken what would appear to be a far left stance. Now, whether or not, whoever you wanted to win the election in this country, no matter what, the facts are very clear. It was a very near 50-50 election here in America. About half of this country voted for Donald Trump, and about half of this country voted for Joe Biden. It would appear that Joe Biden got the slight amount more, but it's not a significant number if you look at it. And that's nothing new. Every presidential election for the last several years has been along this 50-50 divide. But what does this mean? This means you can't take a far left stance without irritating half of your customer base, particularly half of a base that comes to an alternative platform to get away from the insanity that goes on inside of the main platforms. So let's have a look at what this code of practice of disinformation basically says. This launched into effect October 2018 and was signed on by Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Mozilla, as well as by some advertisers. The idea here is to have misinformation. We want to monitor and eradicate disinformation. So the problem is your definition of the word disinformation, because disinformation, it depends on who you are. Let's just get religious for a moment. Hey, we'll step on everybody's toes by the end, all right? If you get religious for a moment, if a person comes in and says, I'm a Christian, then all other faiths and religions don't have truth at the center. But if you come in and you say you're a Muslim, you think all other religions also don't have truth among them. And so the question, is there an objective reality? Well, we're going to leave the answer to that question to the religious scholars for now, because we're talking here about this. The point that I'm making is disinformation isn't always clear cut. I had a community strike on this channel for actually reporting facts as defined by the Centers for Disease Control. I report facts, and that's called disinformation. That's what the community strike was, disinformation. Who's monitoring this? I happen to hold a doctorate degree in integrative biological sciences, and I bet that the person who watched the video and made the final determination didn't, but he tended to disagree with my viewpoint, or maybe the facts and the data. And this is where, when we start talking about disinformation, this is when Facebook and Twitter and all these social media companies started bringing on these quote unquote third party fact checkers, right? These fact checkers. But if you start looking at the politics of the fact checkers, they tend to all be on certain sides of the political spectrum. Well, the problem is that Facebook is generally not liked because of the fact checkers, nor is Twitter, nor is even Google liked by the fact checkers. So here's Mozilla jumping right on in to the fact checkers. It's one thing with Facebook and with Twitter and with Google and with YouTube trying to say this is true information, this is false information, as we are going to find on our platform. But when the web browser, the very thing that's bringing the internet from where it is to you, starts getting involved in this game, people start to lose trust. They start to lose faith. And so Firefox is dying because it's trying to take the same arguments, the same sides. People don't go to an alternative web browser that's not pre-installed on their system for the politics. They leave the one they have because of the politics. And that's unfortunately what happens. So even here on Linux, where Firefox is the default on many Linux distributions, we are starting to see a trend of people moving off of Firefox and moving on to other web browsers because they don't like the direction that Firefox is going. Whether you agree with their politics or don't agree with their politics, the point is they are definitely taking political sides. And in a country right now in the United States, and it's like this around the world, and I'm just in the United States, so it bears saying here, we did have a very near 50-50 election. It was like 50.5 to 49.5. So if you want to sit down and say every single person who voted for Donald Trump is an evil, racist bigot, I'm sorry, you've just alienated 50% of your customer base. This is why the expression says, get woke, go broke. That's what Firefox is experiencing. They're taking sides. They're trying to regulate the internet. They're releasing articles that says we need to deplatform people. These are problematic things. And when you start doing that, you start alienating people. Now, sure, some people are like, oh, I don't really know of another choice. I'm not going to bother looking into it. And they're going to keep using it like this. So they just won't want to. But those of us that do know what we're looking for, those of us that do say, is there another web browser? We're going to other things. And isn't it a shame that we're going to Microsoft's browser more often than we're going to Firefox? That's a shame because on a technical level, Firefox is a very good browser. But when they start getting political, when they start doing experiments, they have forgotten who their user base is. People use open source software because they want to have more control. They want to have more freedom. They don't want a system that's going to opt you into studies. That's going to do all sorts of these weird little things that the big corporate browsers are doing. They're like, hey, Google Chrome is doing this stuff. Let's add this stuff. It must be the recipe for success. No, it is the recipe for failure when you're talking about an open source platform. So that is why Firefox is dying. They have forgotten who their user base is. They have taken political sides. They have started alienating a large swath of people that otherwise would want to use their systems. I know for me, I don't use Firefox as a default anymore, and I think that on a technical level it is an excellent browser. I'm using LibreWolf, of course, based on Firefox. I'm not on WaterFox anymore because purchased by System 1. I'm not going to be using Edge. I actually have Brave installed on one of my main systems right now, which is weird. I'm not a fan of the company Brave, but hey, at least they're not taking a lot of big political sides, I guess. And so this is the type of stuff that we're starting to see. So why is Firefox dying? Because they have forgotten their mission. They have forgotten their goals. They have forgotten their core principles. They have forgotten who their user base is, and they're trying to be the big boys. Not to mention, this one browser, over 50% of its revenue comes from Google. A lot of people don't like that. Whether you like it or not, a lot of people don't like that. At least with Brave, they came up with an alternative way of funding it. Same thing with several other browsers that are out there. So these are things that we have to keep in mind. It's sad to see Firefox dying, but the sad reality is it is dying. And we need to do the best that we can do to tell them why. Maybe they will change their minds. Maybe they'll come out and go, wow, guys, can we just forget about the last 5 years? Go back to building a web browser. That would be epic. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with my assessment why Firefox is dying? Let me know, are you still using Firefox or not? And if you're not using Firefox, let me know in the comments down below what browser you are using. So if you are watching this, you're going, yeah, I don't like the direction Firefox is going, check the comment section. Take a look at some of the other browsers people are using. I'm sure we'll see plenty of them down there. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.